How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So, the weekend wasn't necessarily eventful. It was kind of quiet. We haven't really heard much about what's going on. Obviously, the Devin Williams signing was big, but since then, it's been radio silence from the beat reporters and the Yankees. Things have been, a little bit under the radar. So, we're exploring different options, and we wanted to talk about one of the homegrown pieces. Of course, the Yankees did trade Caleb Durbin to get Devin Williams, but they still have Ben Rice. And, we heard Ben Rice's name kind of pop up as maybe a potential trade candidate when they were discussing the Kyle Tucker deal. But now, obviously, you transition away from that. Ben Rice is still on this team unless they move him, which is totally possible. We'll discuss that. What we like about Ben Rice, do we see him as an asset for this team? He's not going to be your starting catcher because you have Austin Wells. But first base is vacant, and we saw flashes of really good stuff from Ben Rice. He was a fine defender once he kind of got the hang of it after a couple of miscues early on. He played 50 games last year. That bat is real, and that's what Brian Cashman said. But, Ryan, I would like to say that Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone came out and were publicly gushing over Caleb Durbin, and then they traded him like 2 weeks later. So, the fact that they're saying good things about prospects does not mean that they're untouchable. In fact, more often than not, it means they're trying to boost their stock publicly to get other teams to buy in on it. So, I do think that there is legitimacy to thinking Ben Rice could be traded. And I think that that's something that I want to kind of start this episode by saying, if the Yankees want to be a championship contender next year, there's a lot of talent on the free agent market at first base. They're better off not using Ben Rice, but why could he be a long-term solution? We'll look into the stats and analyze everything for you guys and kind of what he would offer. But Ryan, before we dive into it, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. And, I think it's really interesting to talk about, how prospects fit into the equation, whether it's in the infield, the outfield. The Yankees, obviously, there was some conversation about Caleb Durbin being a starting option at second base. Then, as you mentioned, kind of out of nowhere, they traded him in a package for Devin Williams. So, just because an organization talks up a player or that an organization says, we have internal options or whatever it may be, does not mean that they're going to go internally or that, that player is someone that they're, leaving off trade conversations or whatever it may be. If the right opportunity to improve the roster shows up, Brian Cashman has showed time and time again, he will pay the price if he feels like that player is going to improve your roster. Now, in terms of Ben Rice, I think the way I look at it is Ben Rice's bat is intriguing. Ben Rice's bat should play at Yankee Stadium. His bat is something that I am high on. But the defensive value isn't necessarily certain. The bat isn't certain either. And the Yankees need certainty at first base. The Yankees need a solution, right? And I don't view Ben Rice as a solution. I view him as a contingency plan. And there's nothing wrong with being a good contingency plan. We've seen contingency plans come out and dominate. Look at Luis Gil. Luis Gil was not a projected starter on the starting five. He was a contingency plan. He was even their first contingency plan. It was, Luke Weaver. It was maybe even Will Warren. And it became Luis Gil because he earned the job. I think you want to put Ben Rice in a situation where if something happens, he can earn a job out of spring rather than just relying on him. The health of the Yankees, it's something that I think is also something that's very up in the air. Is Giancarlo Stanton going to stay healthy all year? What if he gets hurt in spring training? That opens up a lane for Ben Rice, right? Or maybe a situation where him and Grisham are fighting it out. Grisham can fight for an outfield job. Judge can go DH, right? It kind of keeps him off his feet, whatever it may be. But Stanton getting hurt early in the season isn't this unforeseen, unbelievable, unpredictable, unprojectable nightmare scenario. It's realistic. It's a realistic outcome. But you'd prefer Ben Rice to break in, because the Yankees needed him to play because of an injury rather than because they didn't do their due diligence enough in the offseason. Furthermore, first base is a position where you can get a lot of upgrades. Alex, we've talked about so many different potential options. Yandy Diaz, Nathaniel Lowe, Josh Naylor, Christian Walker, Carlos Santana. You can get crazy and try to throw Anthony Santander at first or Jerickson Profar at first. There are so many weird things the Yankees can do at first base. There are conventional routes. There are unconventional routes. I'm sure I left off trade targets that other people have mentioned before. If you want to go, like Luis Arraez could get moved. I don't think he's an attractive first base option because of his defense, but again, he is a first base option. My point more so is there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of ways the Yankees could skin this cat, and, honestly, Alex, I don't think Ben Rice being the starter, the set starter, would be a reflection of the Yankees doing their due diligence at first base.
Right. I mean, look, we've talked about Christian Walker, and there's a lot of different things that go into the context of signing a free agent, right? Like depending on Walker, who got hit with a qualifying offer, you have to give up draft capital just to sign him. I kind of like the idea of signing like a veteran, maybe Carlos Santana, to a 1-year deal, and then letting Brett Rice continue his development, continue to show he'll get opportunities, right? Like there's always a chance, like Santana gets hurt, or like you said, Stanton gets hurt, they need a DH. There's a lot they can do with a player like Ben Rice, and I do think that unless they trade him, there is value to be had, even if it's as a backup catcher. I mean, Ryan, let's be honest here. Jose Trevino, he's nothing special. Right? Jose Trevino is probably, he's an elite defensive catcher, yes, but offensively, you're not getting much value out of him. Maybe there's an avenue for Ben Rice to be the backup catcher / backup first baseman. Do you think that's something they could consider doing? Maybe he's not the primary first baseman, but maybe he can be a little bit of a utility option. You don't usually find utility options that kind of cover first base and catcher, but maybe that's something the Yankees could consider. I know he's not the elite defensive player that Jose Trevino is, but Austin Wells is going to be playing every single day. There is no reason for Trevino to even sniff the field unless they're trying to give Wells a day off, which catchers do need. But is there an avenue for Ben Rice to maybe be the backup catcher?
I think Trevino will remain the backup. I'm confident in saying that. The big reason I say that is because, honestly, Trevino's such a good defensive player that, for this pitching staff, it's very important to have that be your backup. You do not want an unreliable catcher backing up. Rice is someone who his catching abilities are questionable. I don't know if he can stick at catcher the way that Wells has, although I do think he's a better defensive player than, he's not a brick at catcher. I just don't think he's an upper echelon defender. Wells, people forget, it's not like Trevino is an elite defender and Wells is a huge step back from that. Wells is a significantly better defender than people give him credit for. You're taking a huge defensive step back, and then again with Rice, he's a lefty. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't hit anyone that Wells can't hit. Whereas Trevino might be able to hit some pitchers that Wells can't hit or Wells struggles with. You know what I mean? Trevino is better against lefties. I think it's just a more natural platoon fit. If Rice is a righty, I actually think he would be the backup catcher, and I think he would have a chance at that. Or maybe he'd be, a backup first base, kind of bench rover, whatever you have to make him be. I think by being a left-handed hitter, he's just another lefty that can play catcher and play first base. And there are a good amount of those on the market at first base, and obviously they have a starting catcher who's a left-handed hitter. But, Wells, someone who doesn't have the cleanest bill of health, neither does Trevino, and they just traded Carlos Narvaez, so is Ben Rice their third catcher? Should they keep Ben Rice? Should they bring Ben Rice back into catching, right? Should they kind of stick him at catcher, send him to AAA, and let him learn how to catch? Is that something you could consider? Maybe. I don't think he'd be out of the gate, but could he develop into that? We'll see. I also think, when you look at the catching position, you're very blessed to have what I think are two premium defensive players. I think the Yankees, and it's cheap too. Trevino costs $4 million towards a luxury tax, and Wells is still in his rookie years. So, you're paying less than $5 million for what should be one of the 5 best catching rooms in the sport next year. I don't think the Yankees should make many adjustments there. I think it's again first base, and as I mentioned with DH, if Stan gets hurt, does Rice win a job? Can he win a job? Can he do what Luis Gil did? If your first base addition gets hurt, can Rice kind of do what they did? That's kind of why I think you and I are firmly against long-term commitments at first base. If you brought in a Yandy Diaz, right, he's a 1-year commitment with a second year for a club option. If Rice just steals the job from him because he gets hurt and he doesn't come back the same, shoot, you just cut him, right? You just cut him loose, or you trade him, or whatever it may be. Rice is also an attractive trade piece, I think, because I think teams view his bat as very projectable. Could the Yankees kind of float his value on the market and get something back in return? We'll see. But overall, I think Rice is it's good that the Yankees have Ben Rice, because there are a lot of things they can do with him, whether it's contingency plan, trade piece, whatever it may be. He's going to be a big reason why this team could be better next year, depending on either A, if he gets traded, or B, if he's a good contingency plan for another player on the roster.
Yeah, listen, Ben Rice's value right now, it's his bat. Defensively, of course, as you mentioned, Jose Trevino is the better solution in terms of just a defensive. Having a backup elite, we're talking if Jose Trevino played a full season, he'd be the best defensive catcher in the game. It's rare to have that as your backup. So yeah, I do agree with you. Ben Rice does have attractiveness as a backup catcher, but he's not an elite backup catcher. And, having that, defensive value for Trevino certainly is super valuable. But when you're looking at Ben Rice and his value now, the thing that really sways me away from giving Rice any length at first base is that this team needs to win games right now. They need to make a run for a championship right now. And the first base market is flush with talent. I mean, Alonso, Christian Walker, Carlos Santana, as you mentioned, Yandy Diaz, Nathaniel Lowe, if you want to go in the trade market, Josh Naylor. Now, we don't know if these guys are actually available, but if they are and teams are willing to listen, the Yankees have resources. They do have prospects and MLB-ready talent to trade at a moment's notice if they want to go in that direction. They can make a substantial upgrade. Right? Ben Rice, you're lucky to get 100 WRC plus out of him as a rookie, basically. He played 50 games last year, so I'd say like that's kind of enough to be like a rookie. But, I do think, this upcoming year, maybe his defense is slightly below average. He's a 100 WRC plus guy. Is that enough to move the needle? Maybe not. Especially when you have so many great options, and not every team is willing to spend big money on a first baseman, right? The Mets don't want to give Pete Alonso a long-term deal. There are reporters who are now coming out saying maybe they give him a shorter-term deal with higher money. Christian Walker, like who's going to give him $20+ million per season? We'll find out. Maybe the Yankees circle back around and ends up signing him anyway. 119 WRC plus kind of guy, thumper. That's a really big value grab for the Yankees. That's a humongous improvement. Carlos Santana, even when he had a 114 WRC plus, switch hitter, awesome defender last year, Gold Glove winner. You're getting substantially better by a $6 million investment in Carlos Santana compared to Ben Rice. Why would you start Ben Rice over such a cheap solution like Santana, who's probably going to give you a bit better offensive production as well? Yeah, he's 38. Dude can't freaking move, but he's going to give you ridiculous defense and good enough offense with some slugging. And that's all you really need at this point in time. So, ask you this, Ryan, do you see Ben Rice as more of a trade piece right now? If he doesn't have a slot on this team and he's blocked by a better option, because they should sign a veteran, they will probably sign a veteran, do you think they should be floating him as a trade piece?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's an attractive trade piece to a team that can give him at bats who, maybe they don't have the coin to spend at first base, to spend at DH, whatever it may be. And one thing I wanted to mention regarding the Yankees and kind of where they were at first, they don't have a good backup plan. You know what I mean? I don't know what they're going to do if Ben Rice doesn't pan out. You don't want to be in that spot again. And without Juan Soto, without getting a Kyle Tucker, you cannot afford to take more question marks on your offense. Dominguez is a question mark. He's a prospect. You have to ride him with a question mark. You have to view him as nothing more than like a 7, 8, an 8 or 9 hitter, if I'm being honest with you. They need security at first base. And one of the options who I think actually matches up very well with them, and I've kind of thought about them in the recent days. And look, I don't think I would prefer like a Josh Naylor, I think, to Nathaniel Lowe from an offensive standpoint. I think I'd prefer a Christian Walker to Nathaniel Lowe from an offensive standpoint, just because I get a little more power there. And I don't know if you're going to be able to get power at left field or third base or second base, whichever position they choose to upgrade at. But Nathaniel Lowe makes a lot of sense from a trade standpoint. The Rangers need relievers. The Yankees have a good chunk of relievers who are controllable. The Yankees need a first baseman. The Rangers acquired Jake Berger. They're looking to bring in someone like a Jock Peterson. What if you were to do like Jake Cousins and Ben Rice, or Ian Hamilton and Ben Rice, and then you offer that to Texas? Is that an attractive trade option, trade avenue for the Yankees? And I think that's a route where the Yankees do get better in that scenario. I think the Yankees get a better player, a premium defensive first baseman, a good OBP threat, someone who I'd probably lead off. If I'm being honest, I'd probably put him at the top of the lineup. I don't think he's more of a 3-hitter. I think he's more of a 1-hitter at this point. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. And if he is a 3-hitter, he can clean up. He's got good contact rates, good bat-to-ball skills. If you want to hit him 5th or 3rd, whatever you choose to do. The only concern, obviously, is that if you get Bellinger in left and you get, like a Ha-Seong Kim or Nico Horner, you don't have a lot of pop in your lineup. You don't have a lot of like good power, and that's concerning because you're losing Juan Soto. But there are ways to kind of. Lowe would be, if you can get Lowe swing the play, if you can get him to pull the ball in the air a little bit more, you would have a hitter who I think could put up like a 130 WRC plus in Yankee Stadium. This is a pretty freaking talented hitter. That trade works, right? And that's a secure option at first base for the next 2 years. And he's young. He's not like 31 or whatever it may be. Let me pull up Nathaniel Lowe's age for you guys. I apologize that I didn't have this preemptively. Nathaniel Lowe, who was 7th in WRC plus this year for first baseman, he's 29. He's going to turn 30 next July. He's still a pretty young guy. Again, really good OBP. The Yankees could use some OBP right now. They have a decent amount of power at Judge. I would prefer them get a little more pop, but it's fine. A 361 OBP, you'll take it, right? Like, I think you and I would say that we'd be very happy with that hitting in front of Aaron Judge. 22% strikeout rate, that's not bad. 12.6% walk rate, that's really good. If you're able to get Bellinger and he can hit some more home runs at Yankee Stadium, that helps. At third base, I don't know what they do. Maybe they bring in an Alex Bregman. If they bring in Alex Bregman, then yeah, you've got a pretty freaking good lineup, man. Where you've got, maybe you lead off Lau, you hit, you have Judge second. I would probably go Chisholm third over Bellinger. I think Chisholm has a little more power. Stanton 4, Bellinger 5, Bregman 6, Wells 7, Volpe 8, Dominguez 9. That's a really freaking good offense, man. And more importantly, a very good defense as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a really good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Right now, I'm getting the sense that I think they may trade for a first baseman. I know I would love Walker. Do I love giving up the draft picks? I don't think the Yankees want to if they can find a better solution. Worst case, you just get Carlos Santana. I mean, he's probably the best value grab on the market right now, Carlos Santana. But does he move the Yankees enough to go down that route? Do they think he's going to regress at 39? I mean, there's a damn good chance he does. So, there's a lot of reservations. But Josh Naylor would be sick. Boy, he's 27. Obviously you're getting a really, really solid player there who's he's a rental, but he's gonna mash homers from the left side of the plate. And then as you mentioned, Nathaniel Lowe, another guy that could be a middle of the order bat for you that could just be absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Lamont Wade Jr. would be the ideal solution, but they're about to sign. I mean, I'm seeing rumors they're going to sign Corbin Burns to a big deal, so it seems like the Giants want to compete. Trading Lamont Wade Jr. probably isn't in their best interest right now, but you never know. The Yankees are probably exploring so many options. Something's going to come out of left field. I don't know why, Ryan, but I just feel like Jurickson Profar. I feel like there's something there that no one's looking at. I feel like the Yankees like Jurickson Profar. I know we're talking about Cody Bellinger, and everyone's focused on the Bellinger money, and then Jed is going to wait it out, and they have no leverage. The Cubs are trying to get rid of salary. They want to trade Bellinger. They've been wanting to for weeks. No one wants to take on all that salary. So, will the Yankees wait it out? Maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the player with the least coverage is sometimes the player the Yankees like. Kind of like Devin Williams. We didn't hear much coverage about that, and then they traded for him out of nowhere. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of moving parts here. There's so many options, right, Ryan? There's a stupendous amount of options and solutions for the Yankees. They're clearly taking a little bit more of a cautious approach, and I think the reason that they can do that is because they know if there's anyone that's worth bidding on, they will be at the top of the ladder, right? Anyone bidding on Christian Walker, the Yankees can easily match that contract. They have money to spend. Anyone bidding on, Teoscar Hernandez, they can match that contract. Anyone bidding on Anthony Santander, they can match that contract. And by the way, Ryan, is there an avenue where you would trust Anthony Santander at first base? $20 million a year. I know he only has 73 innings at first base. You're running a really big risk there. But if you acquired Cody Bellinger and you landed Anthony Santander, you could always swap them. I know you don't love Bellinger at first base, but at least you have a little bit of an insurance policy. Santander, 44 homers at first base. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst move in the world. I know it would be a risk, but is that something that you would even consider, or do you think it's too much of a gamble?
At that point, I'd go for Teoscar Hernandez, right? At that point, go get me Teoscar Hernandez, who has a little more athleticism and maybe can hold up in left field a little better than Santander. Personally, I think that the Yankees acquiring Bellinger, if he plays first, it should be because an outfield situation arose that is just too good to pass up on. Granted, that could happen. I'm not counting that out, right? For example, I'm just trying to think of an outfield off the top of my head. I'm sorry. My memory with outfield isn't great. Let me give you an example right now. If the St. Louis Cardinals are saying, hey, we really don't care to, get a lot back for, a Lars Nootbaar. Do you want to take him? We'll take Will Warren for that. Be yeah, of course you'd move Bellinger to first base in that scenario. Nootbaar's a good defensive left fielder. You didn't really give up much of value for Nootbaar. He's a good OBP guy. You can play Bellinger at first. It's fine, whatever. He's a good enough defensive first baseman. We're picking between a group of relatively similarly talented hitters. It's fine. I don't really care. We're fine with Santana at first, right? So, Bellinger profiles pretty similarly. And then you have, so much money to offer to a third baseman if you brought in a Bregman, right? If your offense is Nootbaar, Judge, Chisholm, Stanton, Bellinger, Bregman, it's very similar to a Nate Lowe offense, right? So, look, I'm not saying the Yankees need to go get Lars Nootbaar. There are other, I think, outfield situations that would come about. But I personally, you ask me, Alex, I think that the Yankees, they need someone who can play left field. They need someone who can 100% handle themselves in left field. I don't Hernandez doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. Santander definitely doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. And they're going to require giving up a qualifying offer. You sacrifice a chance to get a Christian Walker. You sacrifice a chance to get an Alex Bregman, where maybe their markets fall a little bit. Does anyone strike you as like a hot on the iron? They're going to 100% go out and get Bregman or Walker. It feels like the Yankees are the team that has the best fit for Walker. Bregman, again, like his market hasn't moved the way I thought it would. Right. I thought he was supposed to make a decision earlier. He was supposed to make a decision days ago. He still hasn't, right? Does that maybe indicate his market isn't moving the way? The Paredes trade, obviously, it creates a less of a need for a third baseman if you're the Astros, and perhaps puts such little pressure, you know what I mean?
If you could get Bregman, I mean, look, if the Astros are like, we're not moving, now that you have Paredes, like, we're not moving from where our initial offer was, and you're the Yankees, and you don't have to give him $200 million, even 190, or maybe come in at 165, at like, I don't really know, but let's say like 165, like, you don't have to beat it by that much, maybe by 6, I mean, I don't know, let's say divided by 6 years. I mean, that's 27.5 mil. Would you do 165 over 6 for Bregman? 27.5 mil. Yeah. I know that's way under what we thought he was going to get. So maybe you do consider something like that.
I mean, I would even say, hey, take 170 over 7, right? Because 170 over 7 is fewer, lower AAV, slightly more money. The thing is, the Astros offer has come in around 155 million. Mm-hmm. Does the Yankees giving him an extra year and an extra 15 mil? Maybe give him a little bit. What I would also say is, could you maybe give him a little bit of like kind of some incentives or some deferred money? Maybe you give him 175, defer some of the money, kick that AAV down to like 23, 22 million. That is a route maybe to take. Because if you could acquire an Alex Bregman, I firmly believe this. You acquire someone like Alex Bregman, and you
better,
right? And you should wait out the market too with Bregman. You shouldn't like jump in and make the winning offer. You should. All right,
the Astros may lower their price now after getting Paredes. They'll probably like
not even lower the price. They probably. I mean, their negotiations have stayed the same as it was last week. Again, the offers around 6 years, 155. That could indicate that maybe it's a little bit below. Maybe it's like 153, right? Yeah. Again, if the Yankees have incentives in there, if the Yankees have, hey, we're going to give you 7 years, 170. We'll defer so 170 over 7 for context is $24 million, right?
Whatever.
And let's say, you convert it to a signing bonus, or let's say it's 175 over 7. I think that's a little more realistic because it's a nice even 25, right? I think that's the number you want to shoot for if you're Bregman at the very least. You don't, if you can get 24 point, why do 24 point whatever? Just ask for 25. You have a situation where, let's say the Yankees say, all right, we'll defer about $2 million a year, similar to how Snell deferred like $2 million a year of that deal. I think it was actually $3 million a year, but let's say $2 million. It's $22 million towards a luxury tax for 7 years of Alex Bregman. I'd say I'd do it, and I don't know how many teams are going to make a better offer than 7 years, 170, because it doesn't seem like anyone's really desperate for him. And the only team that I would say like could desperately use Alex Bregman is like the Detroit Tigers, and they haven't shown me that they're willing to do it financially. Maybe they do. Again, it's impossible to read a team because it can all change in one phone call. While we're recording, a phone call could happen where, Tigers ownership goes, yeah, here's 180. Like, we'll do it. We need to bring you in. We need you. Like, AJ Hinch is like, dude, we need this guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but if the Yankees can take advantage of a market that maybe isn't going so hot, and you have Bregman, you have Bellinger, and you have Nootbaar, you have Lowe, or whatever it may be, that's where Bellinger's valuable, though, because you can say, all right, who's the best available option to trade for? A corner outfielder or a first baseman? And depending on what answer you get, end up with a pretty good team, right? You can end up with 3 players who are in that, 110 to 130 WRC plus range. That improves you dramatically. That improves your offense dramatically. Your defense is very, very good. You're going to prevent a lot of runs. You're going to score a lot of runs. You're going to have a circular lineup. You're going to have a lineup that can maybe finish first in runs scored, and maybe you win the World Series, and maybe we don't care that we lost Juan Soto. These are all possibilities. We'll have to wait and see. But if the Yankees can wait this market out a little bit, kind of put make Boris and Bregman sweat a little bit, I think they can get a contract that is very beneficial for both sides here. Yes, very favorable.
That's what happened with Montgomery last year. We saw Boris we watched the market dry up like crazy, and all the teams were like, just wait it out, be patient. And then you see Montgomery taking like less money or shorter years, player options, like Bellinger didn't get paid. Like, there's so many options because of how this market is going. The Dodgers don't need anyone. And all the big money teams, and I know the Mets are still involved, and they need some talent. They obviously probably want to bring back Pete Alonso, so I don't think he's a great fit for us, but I mean, I'm not going to say no if it's a good price tag. But there's so many options, and not a lot of teams willing to spend the money. And that benefits the Yankees significantly because now they get to control the price. Not Boris can't come up and say, oh, like all these teams are interested. Here's what we're doing. We're going to go through this massive bidding war. The Yankees could say, let him sign. Let him sign. Go get the money
Juan
in.
Soto. This isn't Juan Soto where you genuinely are going to just top your bid by $50 million to make sure you're in the race.
Right.
When it comes to Bregman, again, who is the market for Bregman? Who is the team that really wants Alex Bregman? Who is the team
Mariners? I don't think so.
They're not going for that money. Are they going to give him 100?
Way.
The Mets have interest, but are the Mets going to go to $170 million for him? Right.
They need pitching too. Like they have other needs.
It's a great
First
point.
base, obviously.
If you're going to try to, how are you going to, first base? Yeah. Well, I mean, you can move Vientos to first. That's where, you know what I mean? Like that would make sense. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for them to do that, in my opinion. And it doesn't make sense. Like the Red Sox, they need pitching. They need bullpen help. Are they going to spend $170 million on Alex Bregman? That feels a little weird. They also have multiple infield prospects. Marcelo Meyer. They have Christian Campbell. They have Trevor Story committed for the next few years. Unless they move Casas and play Devers at first, which is a weird, you know what I mean? They would require. The Red Sox also don't really have a desperate need for Bregman. The Astros and the Yankees have holes to fill that can be filled with Bregman because they can move Paredes to first. But if the Astros are serious for Nolan Arenado, why would you be serious for Nolan Arenado if you're going to get Bregman, right? It's like if the Yankees were seriously in on Teoscar Hernandez, the Yankees were making an aggressive bid, or let's say the Yankees had offered a trade package for Kyle Tucker before Soto signed. You'd be like, I'd be concerned. I'd be like, what the hell's going on? Are we going to lose, Juan Soto? You don't make aggressive bids for players or make aggressive offers for players at a position if you think you're about to bring back your player at that position. It's just weird. I think the Astros know that they are not going to bid for him. I think the Yankees are in a position where they can get it, but you never know. It's kind of like with Snell last year, where we kind of just the Yankees just make sense. The Yankees might have him fall into their laps, and then they signed Stroman before they could have gotten to Snell. Snell rejected their offer. They moved on. That could happen again. Or maybe the Yankees wait this one out and they end up getting Bregman on a deal that's very favorable for them. We'll see. I think it's a big we'll see moment.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, when you look at it, the teams that don't want to spend a lot are sticking to their price tag. And it's all right, this is how much we're willing to spend. If the Yankees want to go spend well over market value, let them go do that because we're not going to follow. And the Yankees are like, well, we know these teams aren't following us and we don't want to overpay. So let's just wait this out until they get desperate. They want to find a home. The players, they want to figure out where they're going to be. They got to move their families most of these times, in terms of free agency, trades, whatever it might be. So they're sitting quietly and saying, we're not going to overbid. If these smaller market teams want to drop a bag, then let them. Because that's only going to be bad for them, and their owners don't want to do it anyway. So, there's no Steve Cohen's in this mix right now driving the price up to make a statement. These are not statement signings, right? Bregman is not a statement signing. Juan Soto was a statement signing. So when you don't have a bidding war to become the king of New York or, set the table for a fruitful future, you don't need to drive the price up. And the Yankees find themselves in a position where they got a lot of money to spend, and they don't have to drive the price up because their competition, a lot of these teams are trying to shed money, not add money to the books. So it's like you just wait it out, and then you can offer a little bit more than the other teams and their capped out price tags and what their offers are, and maybe you can get some really favorable contracts out of it. Juan Soto's whole situation was a mirage for the rest of the market. The rest of the market said, oh, we're going to follow suit. We're going to follow right in those footsteps. And the other team said, no, we're just going to wait and let the market quiet down, let things get dead, ice cold winter, and see what happens. Because there's no rush. We have 3 months left before baseball starts. Why do they have to sign these guys right now? Why does there have to be a bidding war? There doesn't, right? They can just wait things out until Boris starts to realize, well, and he knows how this game goes. They're going to wait it out. The price tag will end up becoming much more favorable. The thing is, if you start bidding now, it only elevates the intensity of those biddings and the intensity of that process. You never know. The Yankees have every reason to sit still and see if any trades materialize, right? If any good trades materialize, you can execute those before you sign any big free agents. If you sign free agents, now you have money committed and for long periods of time, and you eliminate the possibility of trades. You kick those tires, kick the trade tires, see what rattles free. And if nothing happens over the next couple of weeks, if not 2 months, then you can sign these free agents because you've exhausted all your other options that might be more financially, efficient, I would say. So, we'll see what happens. I think at the end, Ryan and I both agree, Ben Rice, we don't love him as a solution because we want to win right now, and Ben Rice is more of a project than he is a step-in day one contributor. We love Ben Rice, though. Like, dude's an awesome guy. Great kid. Really, really solid player. But he's just not established, and that's the difference between winning teams and losing teams. We could trade him to a team that's a losing team, with a small payroll, and he's going to start to get experience immediately and probably end up getting traded to a better team in the future. But the Yankees are a team that wants to go back to a World Series, and Ben Rice, unfortunately, doesn't have the experience for that just yet. So, that's just the reality. We don't see him as a perfect fit, but we still love him, still love his profile, still think he has tons of upside. Maybe he's better utilized as a trade piece because of that for now.
It's not the right timeline for him.
It's not the right timeline.
It's not the right roster. It's not the right timeline. And that's unfortunate. Sometimes the case. And instead of having an Oswald Peraza situation, you want to return value. Whether that is him, again, whether that's him finding it because someone gets hurt and he clicks, or whether it's converting him into a player via trade, you need, what I mean? You need to get value from Rice. And I think there are two ways that can improve this roster. It's just that the one that I think is the most direct is clearly the trade route. But I don't think it's kind of like, again, I'm going to look at Luis Gil again and point to him as I don't think Luis had a spot on this team entering the year. I did not. And I thought, the Yankees might have considered chopping him. He was getting older. He was entering his age 25 season. And then he clicked. And that's someone taking advantage of an opportunity. Maybe even Rice is capable of doing the same thing, but we'll have to wait and see for that. And if the Yankees choose to trade him, it would be them getting value in return for him. And at first base, you need security. Last year we went through this, man. First base was a disaster last year for the Yankees, like an unmitigated disaster, and it kind of has been for the last 2 years. So as a first baseman, over the last 2 years, the Yankees have had negative 0.8 WAR with an 84 WRC plus and 37 home runs. They're bottom 5 in every important category at first base. You know what I mean? They need, and I mean desperately need, help at first base. They cannot keep punting the position. They have to address it. It is a need. It is a must. It is no doubt about it. It has to happen if this team wants to go anywhere in 2025. And without Juan Soto to be that deodorant for a lot of other positions, because that's what Judge and Soto were. They were deodorant for second base. It's not second base, excuse me. For third base for the first half. For when Volpe struggled. For first base. For left field, for catcher before Wells broke out, right? That's what those two were. They were deodorant. And this team clicked when those two guys were humming and other positions were humming. And even the postseason, Stan and Soto were deodorant for a lineup that could not hit with runners scoring position at all. Pretty sure they don't think they had an extra base hit with runners scoring position until the ALCS, which is kind of crazy to think about. Or maybe it was the World Series. It took a while, Alex. They were really bad in those situations. Chisholm was abysmal in the postseason. Judge was abysmal. Trying to think of who else. Obviously, first base was horrible. Wells was banged up and not very good. Verdugo wasn't very good with the bat. You were a lineup that were hoping for two guys to pop off and provide deodorant for the rest of your team. Now you need to create a circular lineup where you don't need to mask the rest of your lineup and you can kind of make things happen, right, Alex? You need circular lineups. That's the only way you're going to contend because you don't have your two guys who can kind of carry your entire offense. That's where we're at this point.
Yep, I agree. But guys, always happy to hear your thoughts down below in the YouTube comments section about Ben Rice. A couple different topics. I know everyone wants signings, but sometimes the season's far away. If we end up making the signings down the road, it'll be fine. It's just about time right now and waiting out the market and being patient and making the right proper moves. I know everyone's excited and we are too. And we're going to keep looking at different options and player analysis and breaking down all these different pieces, doing some more live streams. And Ryan had a really successful one last night he was telling me about. So always appreciate of you guys tuning in. So it's awesome. I think that right now, really great community we're building here with all of you guys, new fans, old fans. We appreciate you and love you all the same. So we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.